Welcome back, everybody. We are in Xanadu, Chengdu as it's called in Chinese, which was the former summer capital or upper capital of the Mongol-led Yuan dynasty 800 years ago. It's got a short but very important history, this place, and all that's left now are ruins. So the old city sits in this huge, vast grassland, which at the moment is full of wildflowers. It's quite lovely. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere as well. It took me a while to get here from the capital city of Inner Mongolia, Hohhot. But actually, if you look at the map, it doesn't look that far away from civilization. It's just a few hundred kilometers north of Beijing, actually. So this was the main gate into the palace city, which was the interior, the innermost of the three walled cities that made up Xanadu.
In Xanadu did Kublai Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, begins the early 19th century Samuel Taylor Coleridge poem. Many people will be aware of the name Xanadu due to this poem, or perhaps that crap Olivia Newton-John song, and well, here it is in Inner Mongolia, China. Marco Polo came here and waxed lyrical about the city's beauty, but what do we actually know about it? This was once the seat of perhaps the most powerful man in the world during the 13th century. The grandson of Chinggis Khan, who would conquer all of China and begin a new foreign-led dynasty, Kublai Khan. This is not a very visited place, you can probably see, but I have wanted to come here for a long time. The walls are the main visible remains today, which in its heyday measured around 2.5 kilometers on each side. In this video, we will see what we can find at the site, and then look at some of the museum artifacts, and finally have a little walk around the town of Zhenglan.
So this was the Muqin Pavilion. It was one of the great buildings of the city. Like everything else, it's in ruins, but you can still see, obviously this was where you would walk in towards the pavilion, and with these two wings stretching out on either side. So after its destruction, it was left for centuries, completely abandoned. And apparently a lot of the bricks and stonework and things were actually taken by people over the years to build houses and things like that, which is not uncommon to where I'm from in England. We have a huge ruined priory in my hometown, and it was destroyed in the Reformation in the 1500s. And again, a lot of the old buildings and old things in my hometown are also made of old brick. Obviously we can't do this today, like here, protected sites, but not in the past. Man, it is insect city around here though. I feel like I just keep smashing flies all over my face. And there's just huge grasshoppers, crickets maybe, flying around. It's full of wildlife. There's these little, I'm not sure what it's actually, it looks kind of like a stoat or something, but it's obviously some kind of Mongolian thing, marmot maybe. And they're just running around all over the place. They're quite cute. So the city actually didn't have a very long history. It was founded in 1256 by Kublai Khan, and just over 100 years later, it was gone. 1369, it was burnt down by the Ming forces during the Yuan-Ming Wars, which ultimately ended Mongol rule in China and brought the rule under the Ming dynasty back to the Han Chinese. The majority of what we see now are these earthen walls which are just left. The city was made of three different squares. The outer wall, the inner city, and then the palace. So it followed a lot of quite important Chinese design ideas. Kublai Khan hired a very famous Chinese architect and designer called Liu Bingzhong to design the city for him. So it follows a lot of Chinese aesthetics. Probably it's one of the reasons why it's so important historically. This place really is the connection between what was the northern nomadic tribes and the Han Chinese state, which was walls and cities, settled down living. And it was suddenly there was a connection between these two things right here. Now Liu Bingzhong also designed the new capital for Kublai Khan after this place. That was called Dadu, which is today the city of Beijing. So these quite solid looking walls are what remains. As you can probably imagine, most of the buildings were made of wood, so burnt down in 1369 pretty easily, I guess. The walls, however, have just stood here for 8 centuries. There's a lot of magic and mystery about this place, I think, especially in the European world. Marco Polo came here and wrote about it and lived here, and, you know, wrote about its beauty, like it was, as far as he was concerned, about the most beautiful place on earth. And later, the famous British Romantic poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge also wrote a very famous poem called Kublai Khan. He wrote it apparently in an opium-fueled dream where he had a vision of Xanadu. It's regarded today as one of the greatest poems of the Romantic period in England. And I think it's all just added to this draw that this place has. You know, you come here, it's described as all sorts of things, this place. China's Pompeii. I've been to Pompeii. Honestly, it is not Pompeii. Firstly, Pompeii is over a millennia older and, to be honest, a lot better preserved. There's a lot more to see, obviously. This place was burnt to the ground. It has very deep historical significance, this place, though. Do not get me wrong, and I'm not really into the business of comparing things in other parts of the world historically. I don't think that's very accurate. But I did see someone compare it to Pompeii, and I was like, really? Not sure I agree with that. So at its height, the city had a population of about 100,000 people, and it was relatively culturally diverse. In that, you know, there were people from all over the Mongol Empire here. So in the city, you know, there were numerous temples, mosques. It was Kublai Khan's rule was quite open about religion. People were quite free to believe what they wanted to, with one exception, and that was there was a big debate actually held in the walls of this very city related to Buddhism and Taoism. And the Taoists had apparently taken quite a lot of temples from the Buddhists, and Kublai Khan decided to reverse that, and a lot of Taoist monasteries were forcibly, you know, changed into Buddhist temples, particularly Tibetan Buddhist temples. Kublai Khan was a patron of Tibetan Buddhism, which is why it spread all over the empire. Very soon it became the greatest religion for the Mongols. Kublai Khan, I think, is just one of the most interesting figures in world history. He was the grandson of Genghis Khan, he who united the Mongols and began their, you know, path to almost world domination. Kublai Khan was slightly different from his grandfather, however, and his focus was very much on China, and he was interested in Chinese culture, language, arts, design. Very different from the traditional Mongol way of life. When the great Khan, Möngke Khan, died in what is now Chongqing, in the Diaoyu Fortress, I actually went there a little while ago. I'll link a video. It's quite an interesting place as well. Basically, that led to a power struggle within the Mongols, and eventually Kublai Khan winning and becoming the next great Khan of the Mongols. However, it led to also the kind of the disintegration of the Mongol Empire into separate parts, of which his focus was still very much in what is today China. He conquered China and formed the Yuan Dynasty. So the Xanadu Museum is just a couple of kilometers away, so I'm going to go and have a look, because they have excavated and found and just so much stuff here over the years. So I think it's going to be a pretty cool museum. Well, it should hopefully give us a bit more of an idea of the grandeur of this place. When you're here, I'm not sure how it comes across on the video, to be honest. It is quite spectacular because it's just as far as you can see, it's just rolling grass, green hills, and nothing else. No towns, no nothing. It's quite magical, I think. It's quite a special thing. I'm not sure if that comes across in the video though, because the actual historical site, as you can see, is some walls and gates, I suppose, and not much else to see. Right, the long walk back down the Imperial Road, back to hopefully where I can find some kind of a car or a bus or something. Let's go and have a look at the museum, see what we can find.
The museum is actually pretty tiny, but what they do have on display is definitely worth a look. This being the highlight, carved stone spiralling dragons being pretty high up on my list of favourite Oriental art. I was hoping that the museum would paint a broader picture of the former majesty of Xanadu, but it kind of doesn't. I guess it will remain an enigma, only remembered in a handful of old written accounts and drug-fueled English romantic poetry. Quite the experience though, and from the top of the museum, the views are something else.
Alright, as you can see, just over there in the far distance is the remains of Xanadu. We're up on top of this mount here. I mean, views are ridiculous. Blue skies, and you can hear thunder from who knows how many miles away, just rolling over the grass. What a place. So this is a ovo, which is a Mongolian word which I'm probably pronouncing terribly. The Chinese name is an aobao, and it is traditionally it's a place of worship in Mongolian culture. Find them all over the place, especially on top of hills like right here. And as in this case right here, it is it's a pile of bricks and rocks, but sometimes they're just earth, sticks, anything. But they were used for places to come for religious festivals, old shamanic Mongolian festivals, and also, to be honest, even used in Buddhism as well. It's quite interesting. It's up on this little peak in this otherwise very, very, very flat grassland. Gives you some wonderful views. It's just next to the museum. If you come to the museum, yeah, you can't miss it, obviously. The museum actually is built into the side of the hill that this is on. This is the little town of Zhenglan, where I'm staying. It's about 20 kilometers from the old summer capital of the Mongols, Xanadu. It's a tiny little place. It's just a few streets in like a square grid. Anyway, it might give you some idea of what a little town in the middle of Inner Mongolia is like. Not many people out in the streets. I think that's probably because it's the hottest part of the day, and only stupid people like me are walking around. Everyone else is hiding in the shade somewhere, I think. This is the main street. On my map I found a coffee shop, and honestly I'm not expecting much, but I need some kind of caffeine in my body. I'm sure I look terrible today. It's because last night at 3 AM was the England-Netherlands Euros semi-final, so I was up till 5, didn't sleep much, a couple of hours sleep and then out. Inner Mongolia, remember, so it's sheep and cow country, and horse country actually. There's when you go out anywhere outside of the town, it's just fields full of animals. And obviously I guess a lot of people who live here in the town are probably farmers. So there's a lot of, little trucks with sheep and cows flying around this town. It's quite a interesting little town, very friendly. Everyone's just chatting to me whenever they see me, which is quite lovely, and a very welcoming place. I guess a lot of these older houses are being replaced with newer, more modern buildings, as is the way in China. People want to live in nice new apartments, cannot blame them. So you see all the shop signs and everything are bilingual in Chinese and also in Mongolian script. Quite a sizable Mongolian population in this part of Inner Mongolia. Most people in Inner Mongolia are Han Chinese, but around here and further north where I'm going tomorrow, it's certainly quite a large Mongolian population. Absolutely no love for Oasis in this town, or Conor Gallagher, that Chelsea player. Who knows? Who knows? Kind of loving this place. It feels real, you know. That is a moving restaurant. Interesting stuff in Zhenglan Banner. Right, we're in this part of the town is called Kublai Khan Square. Obviously there's a very big connection with Kublai Khan in this part of China, and I can see a big statue of him right in front of us. Let's go and have a look. Again, it's got his Mongolian name, which I definitely cannot read, but it sounds probably something like Kublai Khan. The Chinese name is Hubilia, which is Hubilia Square. This is what this place is called. The square to Kublai Khan, who of course is a very important person in these parts, given the old summer capital which we saw earlier in the video. And I think this is where we're going to finish it, guys. Leaving the square to Kublai Khan. It's been an interesting day. The Xanadu was something quite unique and special, I think. And I hope you enjoyed the little look around a small Inner Mongolian town. That's the town of Zhenglan Banner. Until next time, guys, stay safe, take care, and all the best. Bye bye.